Well, you know, over these last weeks, we've been endeavoring to come to an understanding of the nature of emptiness. And in our endeavors, we came to a place where there was a wise saying from Yakov, which states a truism, which is, nothing is what it seems. But nothing, to know that nothing is what it seems is really only a starting point too. So we have to dive even deeper into this to come to our recognition and the possibility of moving into that place where we know and experience moment by moment that all is emptiness. But just going over several old anecdotes, we might have a chance to come to a greater nearness to what it is that we're attempting to achieve. You remember that anecdote about Mullah Nasruddin, the time when he was having mental problems, so he went to a psychiatrist, and the psychiatrist got out all of his cards, you know those cards that have all the ink blots on them? So he held up the cards one by one to ask Mullah Nasruddin what they were. So when the psychiatrist held up the first card, Mullah said, "That's an elephant." And then the next one, a giraffe, a lion, a monkey, until he'd gone through all his cards and the Mullah had designated everyone as being some kind of animal. So the psychiatrist said to Mullah Nasruddin, "Well, Mullah, I have to tell you that you've got a fixation with animals." And the Mullah said, "What are you talking about? You're the one with the menagerie." And you know that other anecdote about the two Arabs sitting on the side of the road, smoking their hashish in their hubble bubble pipe, and a camel lumbers by, and one Arab turns to the other Arab and he says, "What does that remind you of?" And the other Arab said, "Food." And the first Arab said, "But we're Arabs, we don't eat camels." The second Arab said, "Yes, but everything reminds me of food." You know, there's a little story about this King Akbar, and who has this very wise fool as his confidant and his courtier. Well, in King Akbar's court, on one occasion, there was a rumor abounding that if anyone saw the face of a certain old man first thing in the morning, for the rest of the day they would have bad luck. So of course this rumor had come to the ears of King Akbar himself, so he knew of this. One day when King Akbar came out of his chamber, whose face should he see but this old man? Well, 2 hours later he tripped over and hurt his ankle. And a couple of hours later he heard that his grandson was sick, and a few hours later he heard that there had been an invading force into the western province of his... And then in the late afternoon he had a terrible headache. And then he remembered that the first face he'd seen in the morning was this old man, so it was his fault. So he sent his courtiers immediately to arrest the old man and said that his head was going to be locked in the morning. Well, of course, as things go in these places, the old man got to hear that he was going to be arrested, so he quickly ran to the wise fool Birbal, and he said, "They're going to arrest me and chop off my head tomorrow. You have to do something." Birbal said, "Don't worry, don't worry." So Birbal went off to King Akbar and he said, "You know, sire," he said, "I believe that this old man is innocent and does not deserve to die, and I can prove it." Well, King Akbar was reluctant to hear what Birbal had to say, because he was very piqued after having such a bad day. But in any event, he said, "Well, you can try." So Birbal said to him, he said, let me call the old man. So they called the old man to him, and Birbal turned to the old man and he said, "Whose face did you see first thing this morning?" And the old man said, "Why, it was our monarch, King Akbar himself." And then Birbal turned to King Akbar and said, "Well, you see, isn't it a fact now that this old man has seen your face first thing in the morning, and now he's going to have his head lopped off, and you saw his face in the morning, and you have had some mishaps during the day, but whose face is at fault here, really?" King Akbar thought about this and realized what a great error he'd made, and said, "Well, forget it, he can live, he can live." One last story, putting together this little group to see what it comes up with, is that story about the prince who went off to become the greatest archer in the land. He went off and trained under a great archery master, and he became almost just infallible. He could hit the mark on almost every occasion. Well, he learned as much as he could learn, and he was on his way back to his kingdom, when all of a sudden he came to a village where he saw a series of barns where they kept the animals. And on all of the barns there were targets with arrows right in the middle. Well, when the prince saw this, he said, "This is a master archer. I have never seen such mastery in all my life. I have to meet the man who can hit so many targets, bullseyes." Well, as he was descending from his horse, he met a little boy on the side of the road, and he said, "I want to meet the man who has hit all of those targets." And the little boy began to laugh. And the prince said, "Why are you laughing?" And the young boy said, "Oh, that's Nadir, he's our town fool." The prince said, "But he's the best marksman I have ever seen in my life. I want to meet him." "Oh," said the little boy, "Nadir fires the arrows, and then he comes around and draws the targets around." So, in our endeavors to understand the nature of emptiness and recognizing that nothing is what it seems, how do these anecdotes and these little stories, what do they bring forth for you with this understanding? We can say a truism. Yes, nothing is what it seems. But when we hear these stories, which indeed bring us deeper, what is it that arises for you? What is it that lies beneath our recognition? Nothing is what it seems.
It's another perception.
It's another perception.
Doesn't mean to say what we perceive is right, or
Exactly so. But where does that take us in our delving to reach an understanding and a doorway that allows us to pass into this state of absence of illusion? Because emptiness is just that, a state of absence of illusion. How do we pass from the recognition nothing is what it seems, everything is according to an individual's perceptions, into this place where we abide in a state of absence of illusion? What do these little anecdotes bring us to?
For me, a certain sense of peace comes up, a certain sense of allowing whatever is,
Yes.
and I don't have to react.
We don't have to react.
I can just let it be.
Yes.
A certain sense, it's hard to describe, but
Yes.
yeah.
Yes. Because this automatically brings us into a state of non-reaction.
I think our perception colours, our mind, colours our perception. So whatever we're thinking, whatever's on in our mind, it changes whatever the thing that is being seen. So the ideal is to clear the mind, I guess, to be mindless
Yes.
whenever we look at something or see something. Not colour it with some sort of idea of what it should be.
Yes. How do we do that when in life the first thing that seems to happen for us is a reaction according to our conditioning in the circumstances that are arising? It's like a Moorlanus rude and that's an elephant, because of a certain conditioning in us.
Isn't it, don't we empty through the fact that we are getting rid slowly of our little story, like we are conditioned and we just take off slowly so that now we are in a place where we don't have to reflect or say, we don't reflect on what happens, just not stay blank as much as we can, and even if it's still
I think we need to be aware that we have that possibility that we're going to react to something, and just be aware that when we do react to it, we acknowledge that what has happened is a reaction, and then make a choice how we
according to
from that space.
How do we get to that place where the first thing that happens is not a reaction, but that space? Could it be that this is what we're aiming for?
Absolutely, yeah.
But
And it's easy then just to let people ease and
Yes.
just step back and then wait till the response comes from within.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
So this would be a destination.
Yeah.
Oh, we are diving deeper, aren't we? And we can see it in our own lives. So therefore we can see our progression as the conditioning is relinquished or taken. So is it, what happens to our story in that?
Just trying to sort of see what other people's view of the same thing.
The same thing?
Sort of not just your view, think of other people's view before you act. And then you can think about maybe if there's 6 people see one thing, they'll see a different thing. And try and think about what all the other 5 people would see.
Yes.
And then come to your own conclusion from that. Or
Yes. So listening then, being receptive is a big part of our interaction with life. Receptivity and this state of stasis is very close then to what we can call emptiness then, isn't it?
If we're full of our own story, we can't take anything.
We can't take anything.
We need to empty first.
So we don't have to believe even when we have a story, we can't believe in it anymore. We just know it's a reaction.
Yes.
And
Yes.
so in that regard, we don't have to act on it. You understand?
Oh, of course.
Not that you don't understand, just my English.
No, no, no.
There's nothing wrong with your English.
Thank you, Susanna.
I'm an English teacher, for Christ's sake. There's nothing wrong with your English at all.
It's just perception.
Thank you.